Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Elizabeth Aloni, and I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media outlet in Metro New York with over 70 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Manhattan, Long Island, Westchester, and Philadelphia. Today, I'm really thrilled to be able to bring to you with two experts finding the right senior care for your loved ones. Our expert panelists are going to discuss key issues for seniors. You know, older adults and families can be overwhelmed with the array of senior care options, especially during times of crisis like this. And Julie Wexler, MPA, will guide you through the full spectrum of best home care and senior living choices. Welcome, Julie. Can you share a little bit about yourself with all of our attendees today?
Hi, good morning, Elizabeth. It's certainly a pleasure to be here this morning with both you and Aaron. So I started my career back in the early 1990s working in the senior center world in New York City. And what I learned during that period of time is how important it is for older adults, for all older adults, to stay engaged, to stay active, to stay social, and to get just to live the fullest life as possible. I moved on to the adult daycare world and now have been working in senior living for the last 8 years. And those same themes come up over and over again about how important it is, even as we age, to stay engaged, to stay active, and to stay as healthy as possible. And so I'm happy today to help the folks who have joined us sort through what some of those senior care options are, because it certainly can be overwhelming for families, especially in times of crisis, to sort of figure out what the best option might be. So I'm happy to be here today.
That's wonderful. So important. Body, mind, and spirit are all affected about where you live and the choices you make around that. So super important. Thank you so much, Julie. Well, there's also many legal and financial considerations for care, and that's a key consideration for seniors. So luckily, we have top attorney and CPA, Aaron Futterman of Futterman, Lanza, and Pasculi, and he's going to discuss how senior care is paid for and how legal and financial planning can ensure easier access to care. So if and when the need arises. So welcome, Aaron. Can you please share with everyone a little bit about yourself?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Yes, I'm an attorney. I'm also a CPA, and quite honestly, that was dumb luck. But what it helps me immeasurably, helping the seniors trying to plan for the possibility that they may need some kind of long-term care in the future. Also, for crises that come up, happens all the time. We deal with a number of emergency situations every day. I've had 2 yesterday, and being able to navigate through these, exciting waters helps quite a bit. And I'm going to be talking, I guess, after Julie, and we'll talk about some changes that are coming up and, what we might want to think about when planning for all the different things that could happen to us. Okay.
Terrific. Nothing better than being prepared. So that's how you're going to help people make sure they understand the importance of being prepared and what are those key things to be prepared for. So I'm going to now turn it over to Julie. Could you share with us, Julie, some of the senior living options, things to consider, and the support that's available for seniors? That looks great. But we can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Okay, so I'm happy to do that presentation for you. So today we are going to talk about understanding resources that are available out in the community. And I always try to think of this as a continuum, sort of the least restrictive environment or the lowest level of care, and just sort of understanding what the steps are and what that continuum is. So I think it gives us a way to just conceptualize it and understand it a little bit better.
Terrific.
So why are we even here, right? This is a conversation that we're having today that we might not have even had 20 or 25 years ago, right? So we have an aging population, otherwise known as the graying of America, right? And this is what sort of, communities like the Bristol Assisted Living didn't exist 20 years ago, right? We're a fairly new company in the scheme of things. And so it's important to understand what's happening demographically so that we can understand why we're even here having this very important conversation today. So we know that the 65 and over demographic is the fastest growing age demographic, not only in the United States, but in New York State as well as in the region. In New York State, we have 3.2 million older adults, so that are 65 and over. And this third bullet, in the past decade, it's the increase in the 85 and over demographic, which is really so significant.
Wow.
In Nassau County alone, a 52% increase in the 85 and over population. Suffolk County, 56%. And in New York City is actually really interesting, depending on which borough, anywhere between a 5 and a 38% increase in the 85 plus population. So it really has tremendous impacts on our society. And here is a graph that just sort of shows you, and I got this actually from the New York State Health Foundation website. And what it shows you is the percentage change of the population. So if you look at that blue line, notice the increase from the year 2020 all the way through 2050, right? Almost a 40% increase. We see that the working aged demographic and also the children 0 to 19, it's generally flat, right? But we have this increase in the elderly population. And this graph shows you gives you another foundation to understand the implications this is going to have on our society. When you look at the year 2020 compared to the year 2050, what percentage of the population is 65 and over? And I use that number 65 and over because we tend to think of that as sort of being retirement age, right? So 16% of the population now, in 30 years, it will be 22% of the population. So super important to understand how the kinds of implications that has. We know that there's going to be a strain on our safety net. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those taxes, those little fees that come out of your paychecks, if we have fewer people working, supporting a greater percentage of the population, there's obviously going to be tremendous strains on that Social Security and Medicare, those systems. When the Medicaid system was developed many decades ago, it was really intended to be the health insurance for the destitute, for the poor. But we know now that most of the dollars for Medicaid actually go toward paying for seniors in nursing homes. And that has a tremendous implication on our state budgets, our federal budgets, as well as on our local budgets. Healthcare delivery, right? We have to make sure that we have enough healthcare delivery to meet the needs of an aging population, right? Emergency room beds, ICU beds, nursing home beds, things like that, or even geriatric doctors, right? Are there doctors that understand how to treat the elderly? Transportation is such an issue on Long Island, right? We're the suburbs. We were built for cars, right? So how do we get seniors around? Is there proper transportation to get them to doctor's appointments, to get them to where they need to go? And appropriate housing, right? We know that the homes that were built back in the 50s, 60s, 70s that our parents purchased, those baby boomers after World War II, Long Island homes back in those decades were not built to enforce and enhance safety for older adults, right? We have stairs, very often there's stoops leading up to the front door. We have laundry in the basement, no sidewalks in our neighborhoods, things that can lend to safety and aging well in a neighborhood or in a home that might have been purchased years ago. Change in family dynamics. We deal with this every single day at the Bristol. Very often that role change of the children now caring for their aging parents, and especially when there's a dementia diagnosis involved and the guilt that's involved in that, and siblings that don't necessarily agree on care and things like that. So it can be very, very stressful for families. And all these things, are the result of our aging population.
And I just want to jump in. We are going to address that further. We have another webinar coming up on February 16th that's going to be specific about dementia and Alzheimer's and dealing with that. So please join us. We'll share that information with you as well. But I just wanted to let you know it's such a big topic. We will delve deeper into it.
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, we will be doing that in a few weeks. The financial and emotional strain of families managing and paying for care. The fact of the matter is, it's wonderful people are living longer, but as people age, very often their care needs increase and care can be expensive. And, so that has tremendous implications on how families can pay for care for the long term. And that's why Aaron's here, because he's going to help us figure all that out at the end. Do we have adequate and appropriate community-based services, right? So the senior center, because I mentioned before, I came from the senior center world, and those senior centers were sort of developed back in the 1960s, but are they really what seniors are looking for today? And for those folks that are 85 and over, is that senior center system really designed for them to meet their care needs? Not all the time. And do we, in general, have aging-friendly communities? So what happens when families need care? So generally, there's two main options, right? Just to simplify things, you can get care in the home, right? So maybe mom is a little bit forgetful now, or maybe she's physically frail in some way and she needs a little bit of extra help. You can choose to get care at home. Your other option is to move, right? To find the right senior living option. So my job, I feel like every day I strive to make sure that senior living is not sort of that other option when the home care doesn't work out, right? I want them to be equal options. That's sort of my goal, is to get people to understand them as two really equal options and equally as good options, just different options for different people, right? And so we're here today to sort of understand what those options are. So today we're going to talk about, I joke sometimes, I say it's alphabet soup of home care and alphabet soup of senior care options, because it can be a little bit confusing. So we're going to talk today a little bit about defining some of these terms that you might be hearing. Once again, as I mentioned before, I like to think of things as a continuum. So that first level of care is really going to be that companion, right? A companion is going to be somebody who is just that. They're not necessarily trained or have a skill set, but there's somebody who are there to sort of visit with mom, to maybe be friendly company, maybe prevent, doing some light housekeeping or light meal prep. Once the individual needs what we call hands-on assistance, the person needs help getting dressed, the person needs help taking a shower, needs help with going to the bathroom, using, toileting, they really need to go to what's called a licensed home care agency. Once there's hands-on care, needs to go to a licensed home care agency. So these are trained home health aides. They go through a pretty rigorous training that's overseen by a nurse, and they get licensed to be a home health aide. So anytime there's hands-on care, you need to go through a licensed home care agency. There are folks out there that are sort of private home health aides that you can hire that aren't affiliated with a licensed home care agency. But just be careful out there, because they might not necessarily have gone through the criminal background check or have been vetted. So just be really careful. There's actually a company out there that helps to vet private contractors, private home health aides. And just know that I've been in this network on Long Island for a very long time. So if maybe you're not looking for assisted living, maybe you're looking for a reputable home health care agency, don't hesitate to reach out to me, because if I can't help you, chances are I know somebody who can, and I'm always happy to make referrals to organizations and other professionals that I know provide good work. All right, so what is a certified home health care agency, otherwise known as a CHOP? So what happens is when a person has some sort of an illness, so maybe mom falls and fractures a hip, or she's in the hospital and then rehab after a urinary tract infection, you're actually entitled to, in this particular case, to services under Medicare. Those services are provided by what's called a CHA, or a certified home health agency. And usually the social worker, or whoever the discharge planner is at that rehab or that hospital, will set you up with that CHA, who will set up in-home services. Might be home health aid, might be physical therapy, even occupational therapy, whatever is required. And it's sort of all organized by this certified home health care agency. Now, they might contract with a licensed home care agency for the home care piece, but it is all sort of overseen by that certified home health care agency. So that's the difference. I wanted to just clarify what the difference is between a CHA and a licensed home care agency. Then there's hospice. So if a person meets certain requirements, typically the doctor and the family and the individual have agreed that there is less than 6 months to live, you can actually apply to get hospice or go on hospice, which is covered by your Medicare. What's good about hospice is it really is designed, people think, oh, it's about dying. It's really not. It's actually about living. It's about living the safest way and the fullest way possible at the end of life. And the family is actually entitled, and the individual as well, to additional services. So hospice, and you can get hospice anywhere. You can get hospice at home. You can get hospice in assisted living. You can even get hospice in a hospital or in a nursing home. But really, they do such amazing work. And so if you're entitled to that, I definitely suggest that you consider enrolling if that's something that your family, that your loved one is entitled to.
Do you have to enroll, Julie, at a certain time?
So typically what happens is the doctor certifies that you have less than 6 months to live. That's how you are sort of eligible for hospice. If you live more than 6 months, you don't get kicked off hospice. You can ask for an extension. So we have people that are, go on hospice and they do great and they come off hospice, or people that are on hospice for years. It really depends. But there is like an application process that you work through with your doctor.
Okay, thank you.
So other options for people who are living at home, don't forget about that senior center network. It's not just the senior center, not just those congregate meals and those yoga classes and those discussions and things like that, those discussion groups, but very often senior centers are, like I said, an opportunity for people to stay engaged. And it can really work very well in conjunction with a lot of these other home care options. So maybe you need somebody in the morning to kind of help you, get dressed and get out of bed. But then once that bus comes and takes you to the senior center, you're able to be social, you have that structure, you're getting those congregate meals, really super important. And we have such a wonderful network of senior centers here on Long Island, and as well as in New York City. So what happens if a senior center is no longer an appropriate setting for you? We have what's called adult daycare. And as I said before, came from the adult daycare world. And this is typically for people who are a little bit more physically frail or otherwise have a cognitive impairment. So all the programming that they do is really geared and designed for folks who maybe can't function at a regular senior center, but need that extra small group environment and need that extra specialized training and just specialized activities and things like that because of cognitive or physical frailty. Adult daycare is typically paid for privately. There are some services under Medicaid that you can get adult daycare paid for as well. Unfortunately, now in the time of COVID, these senior centers and the adult daycare programs, the vast majority are closed. Some of the senior centers are doing drive-by meals. Some of the adult daycare programs have reopened at a very limited capacity. We are really looking forward to the day when they're back up and running, because they really are special places and really provide just such an important service. So another home care option, I'm just throwing this out there because for people who are on what's called community Medicaid, and Aaron's going to talk about this later, this Medicaid managed long-term care agency, the MLTC. So when a person applies for Medicaid, they get attached to this MLTC. And what the MLTC does is really help to coordinate care because you might, with community Medicaid, you might get a home health aide, but maybe you're also entitled to adult daycare, right? So it'll help to arrange and coordinate all those additional services that you might be eligible for if you are on that Medicaid program, right? So like I said, this is sort of a continuum of companion care all the way on through to licensed home care, senior centers, Medicaid managed long-term care. Other things to think about if you do decide to stay home, is the home safe? Do you need home modifications, right? So there are companies out there that can help you with those handicap accessible bathrooms, or maybe move that laundry upstairs so it's no longer in the basement. There are government funded services to support people who decide to age in place, even handyman services that, for older adults who are living in their own home, there might be services available through your local town. physical, occupational, and speech therapies. So under your Medicare, you are entitled to a certain number of visits, and it can be home visits by a physical or occupational therapist to come into your home to really help to make sure that you stay strong, to stay as healthy as you possibly can. Their goal is really to prevent that fall. So if we can keep you strong and keep you active, that's better than a hospitalization after a fracture or something like that. Geriatric care managers. So, this is a whole new world, like I said, with people living longer, and geriatric care managers are there to help families sort of navigate all of this, and to sort of act as an advocate in the case where somebody might be in the hospital, or to maybe a family member is just really busy and can't navigate and manage that home care piece because they have home health aides coming in at different times and physical therapists, and the person's going to daycare, and it could be overwhelming for families. So they sort of hire somebody to help manage that. And those are geriatric care managers. Okay? This is a whole new industry now. We also know that there are daily money managers. Same thing, older adults who might be a little bit forgetful. So a daily money manager is somebody that you can hire that's a trusted, vetted person to help manage mom's finances. So an array of services that are available to help support people who decide to stay home. Home care, we know that it costs like anything else. So this is, I want to just thank my colleagues at Elder Care Home Care, because he provided this beautiful chart for me the other day. But he just sort of laid out of what the cost can be. And this is, showing what it might cost monthly for just 8 to 12 hours of care for a companion, all the way on through, an RN if somebody needs nursing care, to have somebody come into the home to treat a wound, or otherwise needs a nurse or an LPN to provide the care. So you're talking could be upwards of $125 an hour. So all these things do cost. And Aaron's going to talk later on how we can plan to pay for all this. So we're going to talk now about that senior living continuum, right? I like to talk about things in terms of a continuum. So let's just start with the easiest one, right? The 55 plus and 55 over communities. These are just growing so quickly on Long Island. There's a lot of new builds that are happening because a lot of times seniors don't want to have to manage a big house anymore, right? The gardener and the snow shoveling, or just the maintenance of a house. So you choose to move to a 55 plus. It could be a rental property. It could be, a property where you're purchasing a townhouse, things like that. But they tend to be a little bit more older adult friendly. So, no stairs, and tend to be like maybe possibly in a gated area. So, there might be a clubhouse with a swimming pool, things like that, sort of lifestyle move, right? Once we start thinking about independent senior living, and people hear this phrase and they think it's the same thing as a 55 plus, it's really not. So independent senior living, you're going to get some services. So the Bristol actually has a sister community called Encore, which is located in Jericho. And that's an independent senior living community. So the folks who live there, they're of advanced age, but they're benefiting from having that communal environment. They're living in sort of a hotel, if you will, with other older adults, where they have people to eat with, and a beautiful dining room, where there's activities to participate in, where they don't have to worry about the maintenance of the house, where everything's organized for them. And they continue to get the support not only from the staff, through a concierge, but also through just that communal setting, right? Being around other seniors. Little bit different than an assisted living. Once we start talking about assisted living, then we're talking about it being licensed, right? Licensed by the New York State Department of Health to provide personal care assistance. So an assisted living will provide all those things that we talked about, like meals, recreational activities, the housekeeping, but we're also providing personal care assistance, as well as medication management, case management services. It's a much more structured environment. And somebody might choose to move to assisted living for a number of different reasons. One might be for a lifestyle. They don't want to have to manage their home anymore. And they're just of advanced age, and they like the idea of being around older adults and their peers, and they like the idea of having everything all under one roof. Maybe they're a little bit frail. They don't want to deal with having people come into their home, so they want somebody to manage their medications, or they just need that little extra assistance with activities of daily living, like showering and dressing. or maybe they have a memory impairment, making living at home really lonely or no longer safe. And so the family chooses to move them into an assisted living community. So what is memory care? How is that different? So a memory care unit at the Bristol, we call it Reflections. It's a smaller, more structured, more supportive environment for folks with more significant memory loss. And everything that we do in our memory care units is designed to support people with memory loss. So the way that we communicate with the residents, the kinds of activities that we have, even the way that we serve the meal is designed to support people with Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia. And it's, like I said, a smaller, more structured environment. So you can have some memory loss and maybe live in assisted living, but if the time comes where you just need that smaller neighborhood, that more one-on-one attention, a memory care neighborhood might be the right fit for you. So at the Bristol, each one of our assisted livings has that smaller neighborhood called Reflections. We actually do have a standalone building that is all memory care. That's the Bristol at Lake Success. That's actually where I happen to be sitting right now. So a memory care neighborhood can be within a larger assisted living. It could also be a freestanding. And then we have a skilled nursing, rehab, nursing home, long-term care facility. And I put this all in one bullet because essentially they're all the same. What is different is sort of how it's being paid for and also how long you're staying there for. So what happens is if you have an illness and you're in the hospital, now you need rehabilitation, you need rehab. So you might go to a rehab center that's going to be covered, by Medicare because Medicare is insurance. But if you need otherwise 24-hour skilled nursing supervision, that sort of changes the payment options. I am going to leave all this up to Aaron. He's going to talk about how we go about paying for those long-term care in a skilled nursing facility. But I just want to go back and mention that in assisted living, in independent living, or even in memory care, the vast majority of people are paying for those services privately. It really is private pay. Many of the families that we work with at the Bristol, they're fortunate enough to have purchased their homes many years ago. So they have, they're able to sell their home and then be able to afford to live in our communities. Maybe they have savings through pensions. There are some assisted livings, even one of our Bristol in Lynbrook, that does accept Medicaid for payment. Those options are very limited. I am certainly happy to talk to you, about that further. It's a whole other discussion, so we'll leave that to another time. And then at the bottom of this slide, you can see I have here a continuing care retirement community, or CCRC. There's a few of them on Long Island, and what they provide is sort of on one campus that independent senior living, right? So the person comes in pretty independent, but all on the same campus, they have the assisted living, the memory care, and the nursing home. There are some financial benefits to doing a CCRC. Typically, there's a large entrance fee, if you will, but then in exchange for that, your care charges really kind of remain flat, whether you're in independent living or even in their nursing home. So it can be, for some families, a good financial move for them. So that's just another option here on Long Island. So when is it time to consider a move? And when is it time? There's no perfect time in any major decision that we make in life. So there's no perfect answer, right? But some things to think about, some things to consider. When you're no longer able to drive, things might be, start to become more difficult. So we encourage you to, start thinking about living in a place where everything could be under one roof. Maybe there's a cognitive decline, increased social isolation. Maybe the person's not eating well, or there's a history of dehydration. These are things that we often see for older adults who are living at home. They don't really eat well, or they might become dehydrated from not drinking enough. Increased health concerns or medication errors, history of falls, caregiver burnout. Maybe the home just is no longer safe. You want to be proactive. I always encourage people, you want to move when you're still able to benefit from all the wonderful things that we have in senior living communities and when you can really be part of that process. This is my favorite bullet, the very last one. Your adult children are bugging the heck out of you. We hear that all the time. My kids are trying to put me away. Put me away. I would love to live in one of our communities where I have activities to participate in, gourmet meals, somebody to pamper me and take care of me and to be around really nice and fun people. So we have to start thinking about it differently. Like I said, communities like the Bristol didn't exist even 2 decades ago. So it's really hard for older adults to imagine what a senior living community could look like. This is what they look like. This is actually our beautiful Bristol and West Babylon. This is not your grandfather's old age home. These are beautiful
Wow.
places and spaces for people to remain engaged and have improved quality of life and peace of mind for your family so that they don't have to worry at night that you're alone. All right. We have beautiful common spaces. You get your own private apartment, but then you have all these beautiful spaces, movie theaters, computer rooms, bistros, dining rooms. It really is really to enable you to live the fullest life possible. In our memory care neighborhoods, as I mentioned before, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a few weeks, but a smaller, more structured and supportive environment with specialized training, specialized staff, and really even the way that the building is designed is really designed to enhance quality of life.
Wow, I can't wait to hear more about that on February
Yes.
16th.
Right. So the cost of senior living, specifically assisted living, I gave some ranges here of what the charges are. This is at the Bristol, so there are, other options available, but anywhere from $3,600 a month, which is, includes your meals, your housekeeping, your laundry, your activities, 24-hour security, all the way up through $9,450. And those charges depend on which community it is, the size of your apartment, basically. And then, of course, memory care, which is going to include all those care charges, tends to be a little bit more. So how do you pay for senior living or assisted living? Not covered by Medicare, because we know Medicare's health insurance doesn't cover your rent, which is basically what you're paying when you move into assisted living. So the vast majority of people are paying privately. If you have long-term care insurance and you are fortunate enough to have purchased that, excellent, because that will cover, in most cases, the cost of assisted living. There is a benefit to the Veterans Administration, and as I mentioned before, Medicaid under certain conditions. All right. I'm going to turn this conversation about skilled nursing over to Aaron, because I don't want to take over most his time, but we know that the cost of nursing home care can be up to $390 per day, and that is why we are having this conversation and why the elder law attorney is here. When the people say it's important to plan, this slide right here is the important reason that we need to plan. My mom says, I don't want to go to a nursing home. I'm not going to a nursing home. Nobody plans to go into a nursing home. That's usually not in people's plans. But the fact of the matter is sometimes that is the right level of care that you need to stay safe. And so it's a conversation that we absolutely need to have. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about COVID-19 and senior living, maybe during the question and answer period, because I don't want to take any more of Aaron's time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was really terrific information, very thorough, and we even got some comments from the attendees. Thank you. So we'll get to some questions and answers shortly. So now I'd like to turn it over to Aaron and to give us some legal and financial considerations that seniors and their families should be aware of.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you, Julie. Always, really, it's nice to hear from you. It's always nice working with you. And I want to tell you about some of those slides. A little frightening. I talk about this all the time with people. And usually when we're talking about these costs, I feel so bad for these families and kids and individuals, because a lot of times a loved one has fallen ill. They're, the caregiver, the spouse, they're, being told all sorts of things medically, that this is all brand new to them. They're being all, what to do, what may happen, and then all of a sudden there becomes this component of the costs of, caring for someone at home, heaven forbid, needing a nursing home. And it starts to emotionally, psychologically, it's a heck of a thing. So what we help people with is one part of this big picture, which is the legal affairs, which ties into the financial affairs. And I liked Julie's slides because those are real. I will say that $390 a day for the nursing home, that is an average. I mean, we always like to talk in what's the monthly cost. And, on Long Island, the average monthly cost of the nursing home is anywhere between $15,000, $17,000. I mean, that's per month. I want to make that clear. It doesn't sound real. And I have this conversation a lot. You hear, 17,000 a month and people are like, oh, okay. And then when it happens to you, and your loved one or your parent, and you're asked to come up with 15, 16,000 a month, all of a sudden it becomes all too real. And then the anxiety and all the angst happens. So part of my job is to try to give some stability in one part of these families' lives. So the conversation that I usually have with people is either one of two. One, people want to plan ahead. They want to make sure that their affairs are in order so that if something were to ever happen, they're armed and ready. Of course, the other conversation that I have is there's a crisis and we never did any planning, and uh-oh, what do we do? And, you know, not pleasant, but there are things that can be done even in a crisis. So what's the usual crisis? I get a phone call from the child, from the parent. You know, my ma, she's in the hospital. It's bad news. They're going to be releasing her to the nursing home, and they tell me it's the worst news ever. I go, well, what do you mean? Well, ma, from the neck down, she's healthy like a bull. You know, her pressure is terrific. Her vital signs are strong. From the neck up, it's not ma anymore. She doesn't recognize us. She doesn't know the grandkids. She can't, you know, dress herself. She can't go to the shower anymore on her own. She needs help. And the nursing home is holding out their hand. They're going, how you paying us? And quite frankly, you know, the nursing homes really don't care where they get paid. They don't care if it's insurance. They don't care, you know, if it's private pay. They don't care if it's Medicaid. They don't care. They just don't want to get hurt taking care of these residents, because it does cost them for the staff and the food and insurance and all the ballyhoo involved. And it's a lot of work running these nursing homes. So obviously, if someone had their druthers and they had a choice in the matter between writing a check for 16,000 a month or having perhaps Medicaid pay, you know, I think that most people would say, I'd rather see Medicaid pay, and maybe I can pass some things on to my kids or my grandkids, pay for their school. And, you know, this is part of the planning. But even in a crisis, things can be done. So sometimes people say to me, well, you know, what's going on? How does someone qualify to get on Medicaid? Well, again, pretend that, you know, the husband's calling me, the wife is ill, my wife is going into the nursing home. What do I do? And I would say to this husband, well, if you have the right legal documents in order, and we can put a strategy to get your wife eligible next month. And they go, what? And I go, yeah, I would tell you, if you have the power of attorney, and that's probably the most important legal document, even more so than trusts in this arena, the power of attorney, probably the most important legal document. I would say to the husband, I want you to take all of the assets that are joint, you and your wife, or in your wife's name, transfer it all to you, and to you alone, husband. Next month, she's eligible for Medicaid, and Medicaid will pay her bill. And the husband goes, what? That doesn't sound right. Wait a minute. I thought there was all these rules. And I go over the rules with the husband, and I explain that to qualify for Medicaid, you have to really pass 3 tests. Number 1, you have to be in the nursing home with a medical need to be there. I made this up, some kind of fall or injury, right? But you fill in the blank. It could be a million things. Number 2, you have to be financially eligible. What does that mean? Well, financial eligibility, it changes each year. And financial eligibility this year means that the applicant could have assets or resources in their name no greater than $15,900. This is the poverty line I'm drawing. Remember, Medicaid only pays when they are the payer of last resort. There's no other means to pay. So you have to have less than $15,900 in assets. Third test of eligibility of 3. You have to pass, and most people have read or heard about this, the 5-year look back transfer penalty rule. What's this? Well, this rule says that when you apply for Medicaid, you must submit records for the immediately preceding 60 months, the last 5 years. Why? Well, Medicaid's looking for something. Well, what are they looking for? Medicaid is looking for what they call uncompensated transfers. You and I would call these gifts. They're looking for gifts because they punish people that make gifts within the 5 years. What's the punishment? The punishment is a period of time that the applicant is deemed ineligible for having given away assets. Medicaid makes the assumption that if you make gifts within the last 5 years, you did so because you knew you were heading to the nursing home, your health was declining, and you were trying to get things out of your name to try to make yourself look poor to pass test 2, that you have assets less than $15,900. That's the assumption that they make. Sometimes they are right. And then the husband goes, well, wait a minute. Didn't you just say to me that I'm to transfer everything that's joint or in my wife's name to me, and next month she's eligible? I go, that's right. And he goes, I don't get it. Aren't they going to see this in the 5-year look back? I go, that's right. They are. Biggest exception to the 5-year look back transfer penalty rule. Transfers between spouses, totally safe. So the most important point I'm trying to make is that if you do even some rudimentary simple planning, like getting the right power of attorney in place, you could save the day, even in a crisis. So important. Now, people might say, well, what happens if, someone's wife falls ill and they never did a power of attorney? Well, the alternative to a power of attorney, now, let me actually take a step back. What's power of attorney? Real quick, it's a legal document that creates a principal-agent relationship. In my example, the wife, the principal, appointed her husband as her agent to help her with her financial affairs and management. So the idea was that if she ever needed help and couldn't go to the bank and do her money management, her husband could do it for her. So the idea was that if she fell ill, her husband could take over these things. So even with, power of attorney, just simply having that in place, it could be a means to save the day, because I guarantee you the alternative is much more painful. In the alternative, if you do not have a power of attorney and no one is authorized to help make these decisions and handle these things, the alternative is something called a guardianship proceeding. And in New York State, it's a very embarrassing, lengthy, expensive legal proceeding in front of a New York State judge. And we're asking this judge to declare someone legally incompetent, unable to make these decisions for themselves, strip away a United States citizen's rights to make their own health and financial decisions, take it away. Is it appropriate? And then is it appropriate to give it to you, the husband or whomever, the kids? Not pleasant, not fun, expensive, and absolutely unnecessary. Simple power of attorney, a little forethought and planning can save the day. So to qualify for Medicaid to pay for the nursing home, those are the 3 tests. And again, to review, you have to be in the nursing home medical need. Number 2, you have to look poor, assets less than $15,900. Test 3, right, the 5-year look back transfer penalty rule. It punishes people that make gifts. There are some exceptions. Like I said, a spouse is one exception. Another exception that sometimes comes up, and I'll tell you real quick, I'm dealing with one right now, is something called the disabled child exception. What's this? Well, if a child is disabled, and by the way, disability is defined for these purposes as a child that receives Social Security disability. And I purposely say this because sometimes people think when I say, disabled child, I think people get they envision some poor soul in an institution, in a hospital bed, or in a wheelchair or something awful. And it's not necessarily so. I've had many instances where perhaps a child had a heart attack and they're on disability. And if that's the case and they receive Social Security disability, mom, if she needs now help in the nursing home, can transfer all of her assets to this disabled child. And again, next month, they're eligible for Medicaid if we made mom poor, below $15,900. So 2 other exceptions real quick. And I don't have much time to talk about what I really want to talk about, which are some changes that have come up recently in the law. Another exception to the 5-year look back, transfers of a home to something called a caretaker child. What's a caretaker child? Even the house can be transferred to a caretaker child, even within this 5-year look back window, if a child moved in with mom or dad or whoever the applicant is, for the, ostensibly for the purposes of helping mom or dad stay in the house and cook and clean and take them to the doctor. And the reality is, if that child has moved in and has made it their primary residence, the house could be transferred to that child without penalty, even though it would be seen in the look back penalty period. The last exception is transfers of assets to a special type of trust that ultimately would pay for the benefit of a disabled person, any disabled person. But the way the trust must be designed in order for it not to punish someone that made this trust and funded this trust within 5 years is that the trust has to say that it's only payable to that disabled person. And if there's a balance in that trust, it goes to the state. And if that were the case, then it wouldn't punish them. So what we've been talking about and these rules have to do with a program in Medicaid called chronic care Medicaid. And chronic care Medicaid pays for someone that needs help in a skilled nursing home. There's another type of Medicaid. And I always say, like, someone, there's really 3 places. You're at home, you're in a place like the Bristol with Julie, or unfortunately, you're really in poor shape and you need a nursing home. By the way, I want to dispel a myth real quick before I get on to the other type of Medicaid in New York State. And I want to tell you about Medicaid. People sometimes are under the mistaken belief that Medicaid only pays for the worst type of nursing homes, somewhere near the Staten Island dump or something, some terrible, rotten place. It's absolutely not true. It pays for all of them. So it, even what, the best nursing homes accept Medicaid. So the other type of Medicaid in New York State, and this is really what I want to spend the balance of my time, is what we call community Medicaid. And community Medicaid, and Julie touched on this in her presentation, helps people who have needs in the house. Perhaps there's balance issues, perhaps there's issues, showering or toileting, and maybe they need home health aides. And I think you saw some of those slides. I saw them. The costs could be upwards of, $100,000 a year to pay for home health aides. Community Medicaid pays an agency to send home health aides to the house to help someone with what they call here's the term of art, the activities of daily living. What are the activities of daily living? I always describe these as the things that we kind of, at least I take for granted, waking up in the morning, kind of transferring from the bedroom to the bathroom, right? Cleaning up, using the bathroom, showering, dressing myself, feeding myself. I kind of do this half in my sleep every day, right? Sometimes people need help with this. And these home health aides are available to help people stay safe in their house. For many years, the state has taken the position that it makes sense for this program, makes a lot of sense to keep people safe in their house and to pay these agencies. By the way, just as an aside, there's also a very specific program within the community Medicaid called the Consumer Directed Program. And there's a lot of TV commercials that talk about, have Medicaid or have, someone you want be your home health aide and have it pay. That's really community Medicaid. It's if you knew someone that was near your ma, that maybe they have a daughter or a son going to nursing school that needs a job, maybe they want to be the aide for mom. Medicaid will pay this person to help with the activities of daily living for mom. It's not a king's ransom. It's, minimum wage, 15 an hour or so. But if mom feels funny about maybe a stranger coming in the house from an agency, and I can imagine that people are, freaking out with people coming in the house with COVID and all this. The fact is that you can name someone who you want to be the home health aide. Medicaid will pay that person. And, it could be anyone that doesn't already have a legal obligation to help mom. So this is community Medicaid. And to qualify, like chronic Medicaid, there's certain rules that you have to pass. And the rules of chronic Medicaid are, number one, you have to have a need. And that gets determined by a Medicaid nurse that does an assessment. Like in my office, what we'll do is at that point, we'll send one of our social workers to be there to kind of advocate on behalf of the person, to try to get as many hours as necessary and as possible, as many days a week. But ultimately, there's an assessment which translates into a number of hours a day, a number of days a week that someone would be approved for help in the house. Number one, you have to have a need. Number two, you have to be financially eligible. Happens to be the same definition. You have to look poor, 15,900 in assets. And people go, oh my God, I own the house, I got money in the bank. I go, well, slow down. Test three, the look back period. This is what I want to focus on. Right now, the old rules, I'll call them. You know what the look back penalty rule is? For chronic, 5 years. Right now, 0, nothing. There's no look back transfer penalty rule, meaning you need help in the house. Theoretically, you can get rid of everything today, give it to your daughter, give it to your son, make yourself poor. Next month, February 1, if you're below 15.9, you're financially eligible. They go, what? Aren't they going to see that? I go, they're going to see it. There's no look back transfer penalty. This is changing. When New York State has its budget each year, it's actually an act of legislation, and they slip in different law changes when they pass the budget. Last year, 2020, not 2021, 2020, they slipped in a change in the law to community Medicaid. So right now, there's a 0-month look back. What should have started in October last year was the new look back, which is now 2.5 years, or a 30-month look back. And it was pushed back because of the pandemic, so that it's really going to start April 1, 2021. What that means is that if someone, a family member, a loved one, a client, if they need help in the house, right now, if we were to transfer things out of their name, make an application prior to April 1, the old rules apply. Effectively, you can get rid of things. Now, the person needing help in the house, wait a minute, Aaron, you're telling me, all right, that's great, I can get help in the house and everything's super, but you're telling me I got to give away my stuff? That's a little scary. Who am I getting? My kids? I can't trust them. They're married to these rotten in-law, my daughter-in-law. I get it. And there's smart ways to do it. That's why people, come to the attorney's office and we discuss trusts and, smart ways to divest yourself while still remaining in control. And that's really where a lot of time is spent with clients, kind of formulating their goals and making sure that, these fears of losing control are not realized. In any case, right now, if there are folks that that are on the fence about, mom may need help, now's the time. After April 1, it's a brand new world. You give away things. There's now a 2.5-year look back penalty rule. Now, there's still the same exceptions, transfers to a spouse, to a disabled child. But if this is a single person, an elderly mom, widow, there's no free passes, no free transfers. We're talking about waiting a period of time. And that period of time without help in the house or adequate help could be, could be the difference between, having a lack or a lapse in coverage where this is where mom falls. And now maybe she needs a nursing home because she hurt herself so bad, right? So the time to get off the fence is now. And I don't like pressuring people like that. That's not my job. But there is, I would think of it more as an opportunity, and just because of timing. So to qualify, you have to have a need. That's in a set. By the way, that's also changing after April. Right now, that determination of need is based on some literature and correspondence from the applicant's doctor. After April 1, it's going to be a Medicaid doctor. that's probably has never seen mom or dad and is doing some kind of determination of disability, I don't know what they may find. They never met mom or dad before. They don't have no history with mom or dad. It's crazy. So you have to have a need. You have to be poor. There'll be a 2.5-year look back penalty period. But the fourth test has to do with income. And for someone, monthly income, for someone who is over the age of 65 needing community Medicaid, that applicant is allowed to keep $884 a month in income. Question, what happens if someone has more than 884? Answer, the person's given two choices. Choice one is effectively give it to Medicaid. And now the person has to figure out how to live on $884 a month. Impossible, right? I don't care where you are, it's impossible, let alone Long Island. Choice two, and I wish I had time to delve into this. This is probably one of the least understood parts of this program, has to do with becoming a participant. And I don't like the title of this. I actually loathe the title of this because it's confusing sounding. The person can become a participant in something called a pooled trust. Now, you hear an attorney use the word trust, and you think, uh-oh, here we go. Here's some more fancy legal, expensive papers we got to sign with the attorney. That's not what this is. A pooled trust, in short order, is just a fancy kind of bank account, but it's not set up at a normal savings bank. It's a way to preserve that person's monthly income for their use, even though they're on Medicaid and getting help in the house. So the ultimate goal really is to get help in the house in the form of home health aides, keep that person safe, continue to be able to use all of their income on their expenses. That's the goal. Keep that person safe in the house for as long as possible. Now listen, sometimes people say, you know what? I understand that's available. Nevertheless, you know what? I like the social component. Maybe we should speak to Julie. Maybe we should talk, assisted living. I get it. Some people say, I don't ever want to leave. I'm a homebody. I like my house. I've lived here half a century. I get that too. That's probably me. I don't know why. I'm just, I'm a hermit, I guess, sometimes. I just want to sit in my chair. That's all I want to do when I get home.
I want the social in that gorgeous living room that Julie showed us.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. It's like a little hotel, right?
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. So, when
what was that trust called again, Aaron? What was that?
It's called a pooled trust, POOLED trust. It's kind of like a fancy bank account. That's how I always describe it to people. It's a legal mechanism to preserve someone's monthly income who's on community Medicaid that has income above the permitted $884 a month. The $884 a month, they could do whatever they want. You could pay bills, go groceries, you can go to the racetrack. It doesn't matter with the $884. It's the amount above. You have to either, it's going away, or you can continue to use it on your expenses. How do you do it? Engage in one of these fancy bank accounts, like I call it, a pooled trust account. And, part of our job is to help, manage and apply and get approved for, clients to help out with that. So I guess what I'm really trying to say, and I keep looking at my clock. I can't believe I've been talking this long. That went real quick, and I could see I could see questions going here, and I want to be able to, answer whatever I can. And, I hope it's clear that you guys can call or write or however you want. I truly mean that. We offer a free consultation purposely because everyone's situation is different. I mean, there's some general themes that kind of run throughout, but everyone's particular situation is different. So please come on in, sit down. If you're afraid to come in, we do these Zoom calls, whatever you want. You want to just talk on the telephone, that's fine too. All day long I'm talking.
I did share your information and Julie's information in the chat, and we will send everybody within 24 hours. You'll get an email from me that will have Julie and Aaron's contact information. Please reach out to them. I mean, we could be talking forever because the two of them truly have given us such valuable information, and there's so much more. I know I have 100 questions. What I'd like to do is let me just touch upon a couple of the questions that came in during this. And again, please, I encourage you, reach out to Julie, reach out to Aaron, because everyone's, as Aaron just said, everyone's situation is different, and they are the experts to delve into your specific needs and situation. But I have a question for Julie. Raina wanted to know, how can you find out if a home care agency is licensed? And what's the name of the company that you said vets agencies?
I can't think of the name of the agency that vets them, but I will get that information to you. And I just also want to mention that if we don't get to all the questions in the chat, Elizabeth, if you can send me the chat, and then I can actually just reach out to folks and just answer those questions for them personally. I'd be happy to do that.
Send those answers to everybody, because as I mentioned in the beginning, just because it's a question from one person, usually many other people have that same question. Sorry, go ahead.
And to find out if an agency is licensed, you can find that information out on the New York State Department of Health website, or just ask them.
Someone wrote Hallmark Agency. Does that sound right?
That's not the one that I'm familiar with.
Okay.
Yep, but there
Right.
might be. I'm sure there's more than one out there that does that.
Okay, terrific. Aaron, so Vivian wanted to know, what if mom is on her own and bank accounts are in her and her daughter's name? Would she be a candidate for Medicaid to pay for her long-term care?
So the account is joint with a daughter?
That's what I guess.
Unless the daughter is disabled, right? You know, someone who receives Social Security disability, then Medicaid, they take a very draconian view. They assume that that account is all mom's. What I think sometimes people think is, oh, if my daughter's on, it'll only count like maybe at worst half as mine. No, it's Medicaid considers that account all mom's when determining if she's poor or not, unless the daughter could prove that she made deposits, which more oftentimes than not, it's not the case.
How far back do they need to be making deposits? Like, let's say they got the information now and they start.
Oh, sure. No, listen, I mean, if the daughter did in fact make a deposit, and it can be proven by some kind of check or, opening bank slip or something, sure, it doesn't matter how long ago, they just would have to prove it.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Julie, Janice wants to know, there seem to be so many assisted livings opening. How do you know which are the good ones?
That's a very, very good question. And it can be very overwhelming for families that are really trying to sort through, in addition to different price points. A lot of times assisted living communities are licensed a little bit differently. So they might be able to provide certain services that other assisted livings can't. There are folks out there, senior housing advocates that help families sort through what their needs are, sort of like as a broker, sort of like the same role a real estate broker would do. So I can certainly help to connect you with some of those people. If so, you're certainly welcome to call me. It can be very time consuming. It's very hard right now with COVID because we can't do in-person visits, which kind of complicates things a little bit more with doing virtual visits. You're always welcome to call me. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. So if I'm not the right fit for you, I'm always happy to refer you to somebody else who I think can help you, or to make a referral for you for one of those housing advocates that can help you sort through your senior living options at no cost.
And also, Bristol does have other homes and other facilities that may be a better fit. And you can also walk them through that as well.
Yep. Even so, we have the 15 communities on Long Island, and every one of them is a little bit different. Demographic makeup might be different. The price point might be different. The levels of care that they can provide could be a little bit different. So, if you're in Nassau and Suffolk County, or even in Westchester or New Jersey, where we have our Bristols, you're certainly welcome to give me a call if you're interested in the Bristol, and I can kind of help sort through which one might be the right fit for you.
Perfect.
Can I answer a question? I see a question here, if that's all right, if I have a moment.
Absolutely.
I see one here from Michael. It says, Aaron, you talked about transfer of assets to spouse. What about transfer to children? Right? So someone's going into the nursing home, or if someone needs home care, right now, transfers to a children, no problem, right? There's no look back penalty right now. If it's the nursing home and transfers are made to the children, unless that child or children are, disabled, then it would be seen in the 5-year look back, and that would be punishable. But I can tell you this, again, with the right legal instrument, power of attorney, at worst, and I mean this, and it's hard to explain briefly, but in the worst case scenario, we could always save half of mom's assets and get Medicaid involved sooner rather than later. But it's just, the key is having the legal authority to manipulate these things. I mean, think about what we might be doing, changing a deed, changing, the owner or assets in an investment account or bank account. Try going down to the bank and doing that without a power of attorney. See how helpful they are to you, right? I mean, you have to have the right legal instrument for them to permit you to move these things.
We need you to come back and do, the important documents that everybody should have, because, talking
I think
about.
I need a better background. You guys got much better backgrounds. I got this boring gray with books.
Well,
I gotta get a better one.
You have the jazzy personality. You don't need the fancy background.
I like yours. I like Julie's.
You could borrow it anytime.
All right.
Let me ask you this, Aaron, with the look back period right now being 0, can people give away, can a senior give away assets now, but take advantage of assistance in the future? Or does the giving away of money and the access of services have to all be before April?
Oh, yeah, no. So the April has to do with home care, right? So if you need help in the house, home health aides, or that consumer directed, that individual person, right now you can give everything away, so long as, if it was today, if by February 1, they're below that 15.9 threshold, they're on. If it's the nursing home and you give things away, you're going to get caught. But the real question, I think, is, should people start giving things away? Now, make no mistake, I never tell people to give their stuff away. There's smart ways to arrange it. You don't want to, believe me, you don't want to give it to your kids. That's the worst. You don't want to start giving the house to the kids. It's the worst thing you can do. But there are smart plans, because the most important ingredient of these plans, I think people start to realize, is time, right? The reality is, oftentimes we'll talk about plans and certain types of trusts, and we can design beautiful, trusts that, absolutely, wonderful. But the most important ingredient in these things is really, for the most part, 5 years, sprinkle 5 years worth of time. And now everything's beautiful. Now, we could create a trust, but if someone needs help next month, we didn't really accomplish anything. Time.
That's a really good point. And honestly, we could stay here all day and talk. And I'm so glad we're going to be back on February 16th. I have these 2 expert panelists that will be back here. So I did put in the chat the registration link, and I will share it also in the email that will go out to you tomorrow, so that you can all sign up for this on February 16th and join us again and share with your friends, because obviously if they're not here, they should be. But I think the point that you make is a great thing to end on, Aaron and Julie, is that it's about planning. And about today is the day, and not waiting until the emergency. And that if you're here, you're meant to be here, you've gotten this valuable information, talk to Julie, talk to Aaron, and make sure that you start thinking about these plans, so you're not in that situation of emergency. If you are, these individuals can help you, but the best case scenario is to make sure that you're not in that situation. And that's what today was about. And I hope that you all took so much from this, and that it got you started. Julie and Aaron, thank you so much for your time, for your expertise. Honestly, we could have gone on forever, because this information was so valuable. Thank you so much to all of our attendees for spending some of your morning with us, and looking forward to seeing you on a future webinar. As I shared, you'll be able to see this recording. You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to share it. It'll be on the Schneps Media YouTube channel within 48 hours. We'll email you the link. We'll email you their contact information. We'll email you the registration for February 16th. You're all set. So thank you so much. Everyone, please stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.